Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel. My name is Erin and I'm here to give you kind of a crafting update for the month. So it's been a really busy month. If you watched my last podcast episode where I talked about everything that I read in April, I was kind of busy and also just kind of like didn't have a lot of time to just sit and work on stuff. And if I did, I was prioritizing relaxing over crafting and reading. But I do have a few finished objects to show you, as well as just kind of a story about some stuff that happened in April. So I'll actually start with the story first and then kind of dive into ongoing projects, because the story also has finished objects to go with it. But earlier this month, my TikTok feed was absolutely flooded with the Poisson song. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up. But I was seeing it absolutely everywhere. Just cartoons of this funky little fish guy set to a song in French. And I thought it was really funny. So I ended up making Le Poisson Steve. And this was the first one that I made with the crocheted eyes. And I sewed on the arms, legs, and the tail. And this was okay. I posted him to TikTok mostly, and on YouTube here as well. Mostly thinking that it would just get a couple views and it would be something kind of funny. But he actually got quite a lot of views on YouTube and a decent number on TikTok for me. It got like 300 and something views, along with a couple of requests from people asking for a pattern. So this is not something that I ever thought I'd write a pattern for, so I decided that I would do it, but I would make it totally free, not a paid version. Mostly because I didn't think that the longevity of the trend would be that high, so I knew it wasn't something that I would want to put in my Etsy shop. It was just kind of a silly little project. But I ended up posting a bunch of TikToks and YouTube shorts about the process of making this little guy. So then I decided that with this one, I didn't really love the crocheted eyes and I didn't like how the tail looked. So those were my two main things I knew I had to fix, along with the idea that I wanted this to be a no-sew pattern. So those were kind of my three goals going into the redesign. And I started the redesign by doing it in fluffy yarn. So I got one that was much bigger. I would say overall this one didn't work super well, mostly because of the eyes. I do like that I switched to safety eyes, but for a plushie this big, in order to get the look of the Le Poisson Steve character, I should have used much, much, much bigger safety eyes, and I just didn't have those. So I used the biggest ones that I had, but I did succeed in fixing the tail. I made it double layered and then sewed it shut instead of just a flat panel of stitches. And I succeeded in making the arms and legs built in to one of the rows of the body. So there were no arms and legs to sew on. Everything was just created in one contiguous piece. So that was a good result from that. I do kind of wish that I had some bigger safety eyes so that I could have made this a little bit more accurate to the character, because I do think that the fluffy yarn was a good look for it, but you would need like pretty giant safety eyes to get the true Le Poisson Steve look. So then this was my final version. I realize now his mouth is a little bit crooked, but that's okay. I used the same size safety eyes as I did on my fluffy version. Maybe if I cover my face, it'll focus. There we go. And embroidered around the eyes to give it a little bit of a pop of white. I did the same double layered tail and the no-sew arms and legs. So this was the final version. If you're interested in making him and you missed the short or the TikTok videos that went out, I also posted the pattern just as pictures on my YouTube page as well as on my Instagram. So you can check there for a pattern that you can write down, take a screenshot of, whatever you need to do. But the pattern is available for free on kind of all my social media platforms. So that was kind of my big project for the month. It got me out of a kind of crafting slump, because I've been working mostly just on one project this month, which is kind of rare for me. I usually bounce back and forth between a bunch of projects, but I was really focused on my birthday cast on that I started a few months ago on my birthday, because I just kind of really wanted to be done with it and be done with it taking up space. So this project I started because I had some yarn I wanted to use, but also because I wanted to work on my stranded color work technique. So I picked a couple of doodle cowl patterns by Jamie Lomax. I believe I used the geometric doodle cowl and the holiday doodle cowl and just didn't use any of the super Christmassy designs, just the like regular kind of geometric looking ones, to make an infinity scarf. And I had quite a few mini skeins and a couple of full-size skeins that I was working with, so I knew that I could get like a fairly decent sized project. So instead of doing just a single loop cowl like Jamie Lomax's patterns are meant to be, I knew that this was going to end up as like at least a double looped infinity scarf. So I'm starting with the bottom of the piece kind of to show you where I started. So I picked color work charts kind of at random and added stripes between all the color work sections just to kind of give myself a break. But the color work sections got fairly long, and after this big color work section I was really sick of the color work. So I wanted to do something to the project to make it still finishable for me. Otherwise at this point I probably would have put it back in a box and let it sit for another couple months. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to like really finish it. So I knew that my options were either to finish it here and have kind of a single loop, fairly long cowl, or keep going and use up the yarn. And I decided I did want to use up the yarn. So instead of continuing with it being color work, I decided to do a gradient for the second half of the scarf in order to use up all my colors. So I started with big blocks of this navy and this variegated yarn, which were the two full-size skeins that I had. And then I pulled out all of my pinks, all of my purples, all of my shades of blue, and now I'm working into the greens. As of right now, I have this kind of mid-toned green, a sage green, and a gray left for my mini skeins. I'll probably do another fairly big block of the navy and then finish it off with a little more of the variegated yarn. So this will give me a pretty good sized infinity scarf, but then I figured when I wear it, it'll have one loop kind of be color work and then one loop be the gradient when I'm wearing it. So it'll look something kind of like that. So definitely a very funky project. I am glad that I took the route of finishing it off with a gradient, because at the end of the day, a finished project is better than an unfinished project, because then I'll actually use it. And for this birthday project specifically, I wanted to make sure it was done in time for me to wear it for my next birthday. So I've got quite a bit of time before that happens. But I am glad that I am approaching being done with it, especially because I think the blocking process will take a little while. I do want to block it because it's color work, just to let those stitches kind of stretch out and even out. But yeah, that is what that project looks like. So obviously that has been taking a lot of my time, even by simplifying it with just doing stripes instead of color work. Just because of the sheer amount of yarn that was included. Like this whole little tray was pretty stuffed full of yarn in order for me to get started on it back in February. So that has been taking up a majority of my time in terms of what I've been working on. And other than that project, I've really been prioritizing projects that I could kind of take on the go. So I've only been working on them in little tiny chunks at a time. So I usually keep my to-go projects in this bag. And I do have some extra yarn in here as well, so it's not completely full of projects. It just has a couple in there. The first on-the-go project that I actually just started a couple days ago at my craft club at the library is a shawl. And I'm trying to find where my yarn is so that I don't accidentally pull out any stitches. Although I think a couple got pulled out anyway, so we're just going to try to save the stitches we do have. Okay, now the hook is back in. But it's this semicircle shawl. I actually don't remember the name of the pattern, but I know I got it on a Ravelry, so I'm actually just going to pull it up on my Stash to Go app. Where is my library? Oh, I apparently have purchased a lot of patterns on here, but where is that shawl pattern? Maybe this was a free one. I don't know where it is, but I know I saved it to Google Drive, so let's look there. That's what I usually do with patterns that I purchase or download, is I save them in Google Drive so that I can get to them from anywhere. Shawls. Okay. What was it actually called? It's called the DJC All Shawl. So we'll zoom in on some of the pictures of it. It's a pretty open kind of mesh shawl with a lace pattern at the bottom. And there were a couple options for the lace pattern. I think some of them are pineapple stitches and some of them it was labeled as strawberry lace. So I'll just kind of have to see what it looks like when I get there. And it started off in this deep black, which is now fading into a purple. But this is what the yarn looks like. So it'll be lavender by the end. This is a Hobie cake. I forget which version of their cake yarn it is, but I did wind it backwards. So it came with the black on the outside and the lavender on the inside, and I rewound it to flip the colors because I wanted the lavender on the ends for this one. And that was something I decided before I picked the pattern. But I think especially with kind of the lacy edges, I think having those be in the lavender will be really pretty, especially because with what my wardrobe looks like, I will most likely be wearing this over solid black. So that means that the lace stitches will pop over that solid black color. Oh, here's the yarn band. So I guess this was Hobie Azalea, which is 52% cotton and 48% acrylic. The pattern called for a DK weight yarn, and that's obviously not what I'm using, and I'm going to do a different row count than the pattern. So I might have to do some tweaking when it comes to doing the lace stitches to make sure everything works the way that it's supposed to. And, oh, there's a finished object in here that I forgot about. That's exciting. The next project that I have in my to-go bag is another Sophie scarf. Can you tell that I like these? This is in this yarn, which is a kind of lightweight one for summer. This is the Barocco Summer Sesame in the color 5260. Here's what the label looks like. I got this from one of my local yarn stores, but I liked the kind of stripy effect, and there's also kind of little variations in the thickness of the yarn. So there's spots where it's got like a kind of a chunky section versus a little bit thinner. But I got this one because I wanted to work up something small in cotton that I could wear in the warmer months. And I chose the Sophie scarf because I thought it would actually be cute wrapped around one of my hats for the Renaissance Fair. So either a sun hat, or I have a little like sun hat with a pointed top. It's not like a witch hat. It's, I think, called a Sprite hat that I crocheted. But I thought this would be a very cute hat band for it. So that's why I'm making it in this color. And I think that's it for what's in there other than just extra yarn. But I forgot I had a finished Sophie scarf in there. That's this one. This was in a Patton's Kroy sock yarn. I believe it was called Blue Raspberry. I don't remember specifically which line of Patton's sock yarn it was, but I do know that the color was definitely something related to Blue Raspberry. So this was kind of in my attempt to make a bunch of purple things so that I would have purple stuff to wear for Advent and Lent. And I liked this one with all the shades of blue in it because that just makes it a little bit more wearable for me personally. So forgot that was in there, but it's done. So I can take it out now and put all of this stuff back inside. so that I can work on it later. I do kind of like having one crochet project and one knitting project in my on-the-go project bag, just to give me options when I'm working on things. And I love this little Vera Bradley bag for exactly that. The last project I'm working on, I actually just started today because, you know, why pick one of the abandoned whips sitting in bags on the floor when you can just start a new project? But I think it was partially because I really wanted to do something warm weather friendly. It's really hard to convince yourself to work on a giant colorwork scarf when you know you won't be able to wear it until like January, versus working on something in a lightweight cotton yarn that you can wear as soon as it's done. So I had seen a pattern for a while that I got from the Fiber Spider channel, and it's a really old video from him. I think it's like 7 years old now, but it's called the Karen Cakes Versatile Vest Crochet Tutorial is the name of the video. It is basically a granny stitch shawl that has holes in it so that you can put your arms through. So the idea is that you can wear it as a vest, as a shawl, or as an oversized scarf. I'm a little curious what it looks like as a shawl if it has these like big holes in it. I feel like it would look a little funny, but at the very least you can get it as, or wear it as a vest or as a scarf, which I appreciated. So I had this yarn in my stash that I think I actually got from Goodwill. Oh, I definitely got it from Goodwill because it has a big old Goodwill sticker on it. But this is Premier Cotton Fair in, I don't know. Oh, I should probably take the label that I already took apart. That might be easier to read. Yeah, Premier Cotton Fair in the color Sunshine Day. This is a 52% cotton, 48% acrylic yarn, and it is a fine level 2. And I chose this one because I had 3 skeins of it, so I figured that would be enough to make kind of a loose, lacy vest. And this is what it looks like so far. So it is a mixture of bright oranges, a pale yellow, a bright green, and a white, which I thought was very summery. And I have not gotten to the part where I split for the armholes yet, but basically you make the triangle up to the point where you want to split for the armholes, and then you kind of leave holes in the sides of the shawl that you can put your arms through, and then it becomes a very kind of like drapey bandana hem vest is what it's supposed to look like. I also kind of did it with this yarn because if this doesn't turn out perfect, this is not yarn that I will be heartbroken if I can't wear it, versus picking something that's a little bit more within my normal color palette of things I wear. I think I'd be upset if it didn't work out. So I'm trying it with this first to see if I like how it fits. And so far, even with, like, this looks pretty big. So far, I've got like, I think 10 rows left until I split for the armholes. I still have a good amount of my first skein left. I think I've used like maybe 2/3 of it. So I think I'll have enough to get a decent sized vest out of this. But I'm excited to see what it looks like and also just the wearability of it. I think it would also be really cute kind of as a beach cover up. Just to add an extra layer, especially if you're like me and you sunburn really easily, just to have something to cover your back, and it ends up looking kind of like cap sleeves at the shoulders. I think it'd be good for that. I think it'd be a good layer to throw on over like a tank top and shorts, or like a summer dress to add a little variety. But I'm curious how it's gonna look once it's done. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But with all that being said, I think that's actually going to be it for this podcast. So I know this is a shorter one. I didn't have as much stuff to show you. I am very much putting myself on a yarn buying ban after both our Door County trip and going to the Chicago Yarn Con. I have enough yarn to last me a while now. I kind of did already, but now I definitely have enough to last for a while. So I probably won't be doing any yarn hauls anytime soon, but I am going to try to work through my stash in the summer months. I mentioned this in my reading podcast episode that I was trying to get through my physical TBR stack. So I'm kind of doing the same thing with yarn of using what I already have, not buying new stuff, more taking a good look at some of the really cool things I have in my stash and trying to figure out what I can do with it instead of finding something I want to make and then buying yarn for it. We got to kind of work backwards at this point. But I think this is a great start. And I also think it's a project where if I like it, I will probably make multiples. So you might see a couple versions of this design in the future. I also thought it'd be really cool to add beads to the hem. Not so much with this yarn because I don't have any beads that would match this, but to do kind of an earthier color palette and do wooden beads on the edges, I thought would be really pretty. So that might be something that I experiment with as well. And for real this time. Now that's going to be it for this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw today, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so you can see more crafting and book content from me right here on YouTube. And if you want to follow me on other social media platforms, that information will be in the description box below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.